Okay, welcome to the January edition of the Smoke Bluffs Park Committee meeting, and also welcome to the Squamish Nation Traditional Territory. I guess the first order of business is adoption of the agenda from last month. Has everyone had a chance to read it, or?
Adoption of the minutes.
Sorry, not the agenda, the minutes from last meeting.
We need to also adopt the agenda first.
We need to adopt this agenda first,
Yes.
all right. Is there any additions to the agenda, I suppose, first? Maybe I could add just that Councillor Jenna Stoner would like to say a few words after we adopt the minutes, I suppose. And I'd like to actually add a couple of business items, if I could, at this time. The CRAG work group. Should probably be a standing item. That it was a standing item, I think, in the past, but it's not right now, so add that.
Yes, it should be. So standing out.
And then a couple other items that I just remembered after reading last month's minutes were about road signage and potentially a park use study. Yeah.
And we've got a trails update piece in number 2. Could we add under that or decide at your leisure? We had talked briefly about the potential of talking about future trail development.
Yeah, we can talk about that in that section.
Okay.
Unless if those are all the items, then you can vote to approve that amended agenda.
Okay, can I make the motion, or does someone else have to make the motion to adopt the agenda?
So it's a motion to adopt the amended agenda. You can move it.
Okay,
And then you need a seconder.
I will move to adopt the amended agenda. Is there a seconder? Brian? Brian Moorhead?
And then you call all those in favor.
All those in favor of adopting the amended agenda?
And then opposed.
Opposed? Thank you, Jen.
Motion carried.
Okay,
It's been breezing back into it.
It's taken me a year and a half to get
okay,
it sorted, so I'm happy to help.
okay, great. So is there any amendments to the minutes from the last month's meeting? Okay, can I move to adopt the minutes from the last meeting? A second? Chrissy McKay? Those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, I'd like to welcome Councillor Jenna Stoner to the table. Do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks so much. So I'm Councillor Stoner. I'm super excited to be here. I'm your new council rep appointee. We just did a little bit of a shuffle in the new year, and Councillor Anderson was sad to be leaving, but he was also very excited to take on a position with the Community Forest Board. So his skill set and depth of knowledge in this community is valuable on everything, but particularly I think he'll be a huge asset to that board. So it freed up the opportunity for me to step in here, and I'm super excited to be joining you all at this committee and diving into some of the details. The Smoke Bluffs is obviously such a critical part of our community and such a gem. And so looking forward to working with all of you, to making it the best place it can be for our community. You'll notice this evening on the table there are a few goodies. That is a thanks from the district and council in particular. We also have just a small token of thanks to all of you. It's something that we do with all of our committees at the end of the year, but this committee didn't meet in December, so we didn't want to miss you. But our committees and the folks like you who volunteer are so critical to making the district work, and in particular folks who are driven by really outdoor passions, this isn't usually the place where you want to be spending your time, but it's really important for us to have you at the table and be having those conversations. So a huge thanks to each and every one of you for continuing to dedicate your time. I know some of you have been here for a long time. Some of you are new faces around the table, such as myself, and so I just want to thank you all for continuing to come back and be part of the conversation and making sure that we can make the Smoke Bluffs a great place for everybody. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, getting right into it. The first thing on the agenda is the budget update and park maintenance contract. Sue, did you want to give us a verbal update on that? We also have a handout.
A quick and dirty. There's still the proposed budget for 2020, $5,000 for the operating budget. Contract services proposed budget for 2020 is $24,000, and that's our that includes like the contract maintenance for the park and GFL and so forth. Previous business, general maintenance of brushing, litter, washroom and trail maintenance throughout the park. New business, the update to the East Side Trail deactivation of Phase 2 is anticipated to start at the end of March 2020. Plant material will be ordered within the next few weeks, approximately 150 plants. Hydro project in regards to moving gravel and placing it along the trail near Neat and Cool should happen within a few weeks, weather dependent. Of course, we're still waiting for snow to kind of dissipate. BC Hydro has given the district permission to remove the gravel and place it on the trail, with BC Hydro paying the district back for the work. And our contractor, John Harvey, will work with the District of Squamish on this project. The new car park crag will also receive some of the gravel to allow access into the new climbing area. So looking for a new name to this new section. Sea to Sky Trail Society will also assist in this new section along with the district night shift crew. And staff is still investigating the request for 2 compost toilets for the Smoke Bluffs entrance and Octopus Garden, waiting on callback from Dan Glover at Coastal Health. And just general contract maintenance and winter maintenance.
I haven't actually seen the new gravel area where the icy section was on the rocky slabby section of trails. Anybody seen that? Did they put that culvert in and then they put the gravel down, or is that none of that work's been done yet?
No, there is a culvert installed.
It was?
From what I understand, yes,
Okay.
there was a culvert installed.
And is there still some gravel to put down there, or is all of it now surplus and going to get moved down to the parking lot area?
I'm sure of, but I know, I'm pretty sure there was, the culvert actually was done.
Okay, and is that better now? Is it less icy and slippery? Did it work? Do we know?
We talking about above Neat and Cool?
Yeah.
No, it's pretty eroded there.
Mhm.
That last big rain, took out a lot of, there's a trench.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard to know where that water's coming from, because even with the trench along the left-hand side going down, it's still a lot of water coming across.
Long-term problem, solving it.
So it's hard to know what the solution to that is going to be.
Yeah, I mean that's probably why there's no gravel on that rock slab to begin with. It just kept on continually washing away. Maybe we can do something else with a little bit more of the gravel that's sitting there. If there's a proper ditch that can be installed, and if the culvert's in the wrong place or something, maybe when the maintenance contractor goes out there with the night shift crew, they can have another look at that. If there's a trench that's developed that's made it even more unsafe than it was before.
Yeah.
Carolyn?
Sorry, just to refresh my memory, this was the water that was seeping on one side of the trail, and it was becoming over the course of, and it happens all year round, correct? So there's not really, okay, I'm trying to think of
Yeah, I think it was
seasonal.
trenched on the uphill side to try and
Yeah,
drain that
and it
water
was
to
starting.
come down, but it doesn't seem to have solved that problem.
And the location of the source hasn't been found either, like there's no way to kind of, or is
Yeah,
it
I mean,
coming
the-
through
I
the?
main
think,
water.
was it that Councillor Anderson had suggested that there's a water main running under there that might be leaking?
Mm.
And that could be the source, or a spring, like a underground spring. So,
Consider the water main leak is probably more probable than a spring out there.
There's a water main link, water main, leak, sorry, link. That would be something that our waterworks department would probably definitely want to investigate.
Is there a way to find out what it is, or how do we, if this problem persists and we built a culvert and it still keeps going, what is our next action? Should we kind of have that investigated, or?
Perhaps it'd be investigated through water and they can do a leak detection. If it's a leak with our, they definitely want to know that.
So should we wait until the summer, and then if in the summer it persists, then we can have it looked at in the summer where it's nicer weather and probably more dry than a day like today where you'd be like, I don't know if it's actually coming from the ground or from the sky.
Yeah, maybe Sue, could you look into Public Works or Water Department doing a leak detection on that section of water main? See if that's maybe what's causing that.
Because we're also going to have a walkabout, because we'll meet in the summer and then we'll do a walkabout. So it might be good in the summer if this persists, have our next meeting, and then we can investigate
on that.
on
Yeah.
our walk if it is a problem.
And in the interim, staff can go out there and look for a park contractor.
Yeah.
Because they were going to do some improvements to that, so yeah, we will come with a status update of the situation.
Okay, thanks, Sue.
Sue? Just, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Jenna, can I ask a question? 150 plants being ordered for the decommissioning of that trail? That's the one from Grand Dug Up?
Yeah.
What kind of plants? Yeah, I'm just curious because most of that is mature forest. There's really
Native.
nothing in the understory, so I'm wondering what kind of plants would be.
Just whatever's native in the area. So like salal and fern if there is. I don't know, it is quite covered, and the chance of it surviving. We're just trying to reclaim it, I guess, best it can be.
Just curious if they're being planted in a mature understory and they're just going to die. Is that a really super useful?
Is it a practical method?
I'm sure somebody's gonna choose some shade tolerant plants to put in there, or I would
Yeah.
hope they would. They're not gonna choose like,
There's nothing much that's shade tolerant. I mean, a mature forest, as we know, is barren floor.
like Sue said, the salal and the sword fern and other plants
Yeah.
should do okay in there.
When there's
alder.
light.
Lots of alder. Everyone likes alder.
Chrissy, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Trees, large trees aren't gonna grow.
Nobody likes alder.
They'll be pencils.
Alder with sun. I had a question actually about the comments of looking for a new name to the section. Is that specific to the crag? They want to rename the crag or to the, like, which section?
Unfortunately, I wish Andy was here to actually answer that question because I took his notes from that, and so I can't really say for sure.
I just wanted to suggest that if it is in reference to the crag, that we should consult the developer. Because if they named it Car Park Crag, it's really typically a
Yeah,
plan.
he's put out a topo, and
Yeah.
it's called the parking lot wall, I think, or parking lot crag.
Car Park Craig, that's kind of.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think we should,
I'll do
it
our
does
Might float.
merit consultation with him if we're going to change the name.
Yeah, I haven't, I mean, I was out there with John last week, and that's what he was calling it, and that's what it's called on the topo, and we've called it that on the map, kiosk map now. He didn't mention anything about the name change to me when I was there, but yeah, we should, I mean, if there is going to be a name change, we should definitely be discussing it with developer. Chris, is that his name?
Yes,
Yeah.
well, yes, there's several people, actually. There's
Petter
Christian,
and
there's
Heavy's in there.
Heavy's in there, and Petter's in there. But if you're going to do a name change, you should be timely about it, because Mark Bourdon's new guidebook will be coming out in the spring.
Oh, okay.
So it should be done before then.
Any other comments on the budget overview? All right, moving on, trails update. Asia?
My update was actually the stuff that Sue covered off, that came from Andy. No worries. So I was just gonna make sure that information got conveyed to the committees. So,
Okay.
yeah, we can move on to the other trail item.
Okay,
Yeah.
and just maybe further to Spencer's question, who's coordinating the revegetation and ordering the plants, and is it just to make sure that the use of district funds is appropriate?
The coordination is happening through the district staff.
Okay. It's not Sorka or some
To my knowledge.
layman,
no.
it's someone that knows what they're doing is going to be.
My understanding was it was left in our care to at least get it organized, and
Okay.
whether there's volunteers to come help with that idea, that would be great to do.
I
Okay.
think where we left it off at the last meeting was that Andy was going to reach out to those individuals who had volunteered to assist with their manpower.
Mhm.
Okay. Was there something else that you wanted to add to the trail section?
Me?
Yeah,
No, it
No?
was the stuff that Sue had mentioned.
okay.
Yeah.
Spencer, did
Yes.
you want to add something?
Oh,
You had a hand up?
oh, but if you had, I just wanted to ask if this is the time to maybe talk about poop on the trails? But not to bring it up, if it's like if it's a point of contention, it's just summer's coming and I just want to be proactive about things. So I don't know if this is where it falls or if we should put it under roundtable discussion. It's up to the team to,
Why don't we put it on roundtable discussion, because there's probably a bunch of stuff to talk about there.
sorry, not to bring up that stuff.
Sorry, Spencer, you wanted to say something about,
Well, one of the things that we were discussing when we were actually going over the new mapping was the possibility of a moratorium on new trail development. I'm not talking about new route development, but new trail development in the park until we know what we have and what we're going to establish and what we're going to decommission and so on and so forth, but not actually support or encourage, in fact, discourage additional route or trail development. I would, of course, work with the trials community to ensure that, any new trail development happens outside the park boundaries. There's a lot of trails in there. There's a huge amount of grading. I'm not sure that we really need much more for the time being. So we had discussed it. There seemed to be support for it and people I was discussing it with. And we thought we'd bring it to the committee.
I would keep that for the roundtable discussion.
okay,
And I would also maybe perhaps advise that people take that to their respective groups that they're representing for further discussion, and then that's an item that we can add as a more formal item for the next meeting, because I think that's very significant. That would warrant, some further thought than just tonight's meeting for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Next item is the Smoke Bluffs kiosk map. Do you want to flash it up there a little bit?
Which one do you want to talk about first?
I can't remember. The
South is
south one
The
is,
south is easier to look at.
yeah, that's the north up one, right?
Yep.
It's going to be challenging. I can try to zoom in to parts. Maybe let's just keep it with the overview and then we can go after that.
Is it possible if we knock some of the lights down? Or no?
There you go. Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelsey.
So there was, we had the kiosk map subcommittee there convened to review the map, the previous form of the map, and update it for the two kiosk locations, one at the main car park and one in the Northridge area entrance, the play park entrance. So some new things that probably should be pointing out on there is that we added the quiet zone cross-hatching there. And it basically covers all of Penny Lane, and then down towards Free and Easy, High Cliff, Truck Stop, and Alexis. Alexis already had that quiet zone signage at the crag there. None of the other crags have that, but I think this will probably show people that, just to remember to be respectful and there are neighbors nearby. There was definitely some complaints from the public, I think, about noise from climbers. I mean, there's always going to be some level of noise. There's got to be communication between partners and, your you're far away and you're always going to be shouting, so there's always going to be some level of noise, but hopefully that shows people that there should be maybe a little bit less excessive noise in those areas. We didn't say anything specific about no music or anything, but we'll just let people kind of understand that to be respectful in those areas. I guess something else to point out is in the area around Grand Dug there, along the east side of the park where the new trail goes, is that we there's a trail just to the left of Grand Dug that's Tree Hugger, sort of a trials trail. We made it black instead of orange, which is the trials trail color, and we felt that that would probably reduce conflicts and kind of funnel the trials bikers onto purely trials trails rather than more of the multi-use trails. And then the Summer's Eve Trail also, which is kind of in the bottom or middle right of the park, comes off from Ronan's Corners there. That was previously an orange trials trail, and we made that black to show up more of as a multi-use trail. We added the no pooping in the woods sign, use outhouses provided. That's a continual bone of contention for a lot of people on the committee. A lot of people have been hearing that and seeing it and experiencing it. So those signs, those stickers are up all over the park, and we added it to this large scale map as well. We updated the wording. There was a disclaimer, and we updated the wording for it. And maybe I could just read it off. It just says, by entering the park, you are... Oh.
Sorry, I was just
no,
trying
not
to get...
That works better for me, I can see it. That's pretty
helping.
There, it just says, by entering the park, you are agreeing to use the park and trails at your own risk. Trails may not be exactly as depicted on this map. Please share the trail with other users. So, I mean, there's a lot more we could write there, but we're kind of bound by space and by the amount of time people are going to spend reading it. So if there's any comments that anyone has, definitely open to seeing what else we want to put there, but we don't want to try and overwhelm people and have them just ignore everything if there's just too much text. So
It's great.
and then also the addition of the 3 no parking symbols there at Panorama Place, Penny Lane Place, and Northridge Drive.
That's good.
Those weren't there before, and
More toilets.
yeah, we added more toilets. The toilet symbols are now shown at the play park, at Crack Rock, at Octopus Garden, and down at the car park, as well as we've got the seasonal one shown at Tunnel Rock there. And we added some more crag names and viewpoints. We re-GPSed all the trails in the park with high accuracy equipment. We added the summit on there with a viewpoint for the summit. And updated the imagery. This is 2018 imagery.
Yeah, this is 18.
We removed the private land. We moved some of the crags that were near private land. We removed the road or the trail access along Blind Channel that goes through private land. So now it shows the only way to get to Free and Easy is through the park.
So not parking by the yellow gate, full parking.
I mean, there are a couple parking spots there, but so I didn't put a no parking there because there are a few spots there.
But that's not what crosses it. Sorry, I can't see that too well, but that's not what crosses a private land, or that?
The private land is down by Blind Channel.
Which yellow gate?
You know the yellow gate before you turn into the...
Oh, okay, yeah, that yellow gate, yeah.
The-
Oh, near
it's
at Blind
right
Channel.
here.
That
Yeah.
yellow gate.
Yeah.
So that, if I took that
Right.
path, I would cross private
You
land.
would
Yeah.
cross private land
Yeah.
if you went that way, yeah. And then I guess if you want to just zoom in on the parking lot, Craig.
Enough or more?
Yeah, maybe even a little more. You can see there's the trials trails in orange, and there's that black dotted line there that goes north. That's actually kind of a trials trail too. That's towards Park Avenue or something over there?
Well, it's actually just an easier, more moderate line up to, you can see where they both connect.
Yeah.
On the top of that rock bluff. So that was an easier, more moderate way to get up there. The way that comes through the parking lot is quite aggressive, and you have to be quite an advanced rider to go up there. So that was just cut through the bush and put around onto the dike
Okay.
for that big, huge berm of dirt in there.
I guess I've got a couple points to talk about that area. Maybe we can just leave that up and we can talk about it later when the time comes up. But is there any other comments or anything,
I
Chrissy?
was just wondering who all did it?
It was myself and Spencer and Mike got together and chatted about it for a couple hours or something, and then Helen did all the mapping work, and then I kind of looked over her shoulder and said, bigger, smaller, upside down.
Thank you guys for doing that. It's a lot of work.
Good job.
Louisa?
Yeah, where you put the no parking signs there, I'm correct in assuming that there are also no parking signs on the ground?
There aren't. The only place there's a no parking sign is a little bit south on Northridge. It says
Yeah.
resident parking only.
Aren't cul-de-sacs no parking?
I don't know. I don't think that the
Yeah.
district can enforce the no parking because it's all public roads, right? Unless you enacted some sort of resident only
Well, I know
parking scheme.
my cul-de-sac has no parking signs at the
There is-
cul-de-sac, so.
There is no parking lot in a cul-de-sac.
There's no, is there a sign?
There
Like,
usually
Oh,
are
yeah.
signs, yeah.
okay.
Because for snow removal,
Yeah.
emergency services to get in, anything, there's no typical.
Oh, actually, there is a no parking sign at the end of Northridge as well. Yeah, that's right. Louisa?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wanting to make sure that I think people will circumnavigate it, and it's like, I'm wondering if by putting the no parking signs there without it being a no parking zone, because I know there is at Northridge, but there's still people that park on the cul-de-sac sort of down by Cliffside Lane there, like people just park right there anyway. Like, are we telling people to investigate the no parking? Or, do you know what I mean? Are you drawing attention to that by putting the no parking sign in a zone that's not enforced?
Well, if there already is no parking in the cul-de-sac, then we're just drawing attention to the fact that there already is no parking
No.
allowed there, so.
No, I follow what you're saying, but like 3 feet from the cul-de-sac, there's parking that really gets in the way of residents up there, I'm sure.
And there's been lots of complaints.
Yeah.
So I suppose do we want to try and ask the district to do maybe some more enforcement? I mean, is it possible to enforce no parking of non-residents in that area? We've talked about this in the past, and Sean, maybe you could enlighten us, but.
Yeah, so at the end of Panorama Place in the cul-de-sac, there are 3 no parking signs. You can park on the north side of Panorama Place between the Plate Park entrance and the corner. So there's no parking from the corner on down to the cul-de-sac.
Like in
There's
front of
another
BJ's house,
double
you can
arrow,
park,
no
but-
parking. And these are district signs. These are residence ad hoc signs. And then when you come around and there's the vacant lot on Panorama Place, there's also no parking sign there. And that's been universally observed by climbers in this past summer. I think the district put them up last spring.
Yeah.
But it did displace a lot of people who came up there to park into other areas of Hospital Hill. But it's pretty well respected for no parking, since it's the actual district signs, including the cul-de-sac is really well respected by the climbers.
So there was the email or the letter that came into the district complaining about excessive people parking on Northridge. I know there's a lot of climbers that park on Northridge. I don't think most of them park at the far end of the cul-de-sac. I think most of them park this side of the trail that goes to Plateau. And because there's a sign there that says resident parking only, and they park just behind that sign. So, I mean, it's a vacant lot right there, but there's always encroachment, like one car goes ahead and another car goes ahead, and it sounds like people are getting a little bit fed up. So can the district maybe do a little bit of bylaw enforcement there, on busy weekends in summer? Can they divert some time
It is challenging. There is only one person on the weekend for bylaw. So we can inquire, but can't promise anything.
Jenna?
Yeah, this is definitely a growing issue, and it's not the only area that we've seen it. The bylaw does operate on a complaints-based system, so we have been trying to just direct folks who are frustrated with it to complain directly to bylaw, and then that can be used as a mechanism to trigger their attendance in certain areas.
Okay. Caroline?
I'm wondering if SAS and CASBC can kind of put a little notification to all and any other user groups who are kind of maybe using the parking area for sporting purposes to kind of like put a message out to their members and say, summer's coming, respect the parking areas, or, you know, things could get escalated and we might not ever be able to park around Smoke Bluffs or something like that, you know. Like things can
Yeah,
get easily,
the
we can
only
use privileges.
the only parking, the main parking for climbers, for people accessing Smoke Bluffs Park is the car park
Yeah.
at the north end.
And I think if we just highlighted that, like park at the North Park, and if you don't get parking there, find another place that is like parking friendly, I don't know, downtown, and enjoy the walk through Squamish or something like that. Or wake up 5 minutes earlier and get that parking spot.
Chrissy?
I think SAS, like between Brian and Lisa, I think SAS can probably put out a seasonal message just reminding people to like be courteous to neighbors and use the washrooms and just kind of like the overall gripes about
Sure.
the neighborhood.
What about like a joint SAS STS kind of? You guys do like kind of press release type stuff. You post it on your website and also post something on the Squamish Climbers Facebook group page. Post the same thing on there. Try and get the word out.
We do that early in the season.
Spencer.
I think, well, I think there's two points I'd like to make. One is that even though it's complaint based on the weekend, I think you're directed to call the RCMP for bylaws. We've tried to, you know, there's problems on Highlands Way North, on, you know, Brackendale and Government Road. We know that there are parking issues in Squamish everywhere, and yet there is no reaction until a complaint is based. I think at some point we should really have the discussion about whether or not some areas are just tow zones, and put together a recommendation possibly of, you know, from us, from a Smoke Bluffs Park Committee. I'm not talking about Government Road, but if you park at certain areas, you're towed. There is no waiting for a, you know, a local to complain about it.
Chrissy.
That was my question I had earlier. So it was my understanding that a lot of those signs are actually neighborhood signs and they're not actually enforceable. Like a lot of the ones, I think the ones on the Plateau Drive, it doesn't even have a district logo on it or anything. So I wonder if some people aren't, like, I'm not sure if they're actually real bylaw signs, but if some people aren't adhering to them because they're...
We've had issues with residents putting signs up, especially by like the play park, for the kids' park. It was littered with signage that was not the district's at one time.
Oh.
And no, it's not enforceable.
But now it is. Now it is district signs.
Okay.
Yeah. On Panorama Place. So last summer they came by and took down the residents parking only and put up actual no parking signs with specific parking areas. But could I add something else that, you know, again, my observation as living right there in the middle of it is that people are generally respectful of the signage that's there. But often we'll be out in the garden and people will come by and say, well, where are we supposed to park? The world down the window. And, you know, the Facebook or the website or whatever I was on said, drive to the end of Smoke Bluff Road, and that's where you park to go to...
Or Google Maps or something. Oh, I'm in Smoke Bluffs.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so somewhere, I know all the guidebooks specify the climbers parking lot, but, you know, people are getting the wrong information online in a lot of cases, and so they're showing up. So it's a double whammy, really, because it creates frustration for them, and it creates an awful lot of traffic coming in and, you know, trying to find somewhere to park. And so I wonder if there's a way to get the word out on the various, you know, climbing forums and so on.
Yeah, there's that Vancouver meetup climbing group. I think a lot of people come up from the city via that avenue, and they're probably new to the area and maybe they don't know, so that might be another option for posting somewhere.
Another small and inexpensive fix would be to move the code of conduct sign which exists at present at the kids' play park. Those people who park opposite your house, by the time you point out to them that they shouldn't be parking there, you point to the sign which is 50 meters away. It's in the wrong location.
It
should be
on
at
the back side of the
it should
outhouse
be-
too.
It should be on at the yellow gate, right at the yellow gate. That's
Could be on the yellow gate.
even on the yellow gate. Yes, it's just in the wrong place. It's easy enough to move. So.
Is it a metal sign?
Yeah, it's the formal code of conduct site. It's been around for a long time. It also covers other things like noise, etc.
That's a good point. Would you be able to look in to see if the park maintenance contractor could move that sign onto the yellow gate?
John could move that one.
Or
Okay, so-
perhaps on its own sign adjacent to the
Or
gate.
or somewhere display it more prominently at the entrance?
Okay, so this is, sorry, exactly where?
Is the code of conduct sign that's currently on the washroom on the outhouse or near the
It's
outhouse?
directly across from the new washroom in a fairly inconspicuous area. It's behind the garbage cans, as I recall.
You know, move the code of conduct sign to the yellow gate.
So it's pretty inconspicuous. And
Okay.
I've had to point it out to people and they say, oh, we didn't know.
Yeah, Helen showed me a picture of it and I had never actually seen it before.
There's one in
I was like,
the-
oh, that's good, that's posted. Good thing I've never seen
Well,
it.
There's a similar one.
it's on the wall of the outhouse. Like,
Has it been moved? Because it wasn't there last time I looked. It was.
I was there last week because I wanted to take a picture of it in case I had to put it on the map. Like, I'm pretty sure it was
You
on.
know the one in the lower parking lot, okay? The code of conduct sign.
It's on the kiosk in the lower parking lot, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's the same one as that, but the last time I saw it, it was on its own fence post behind the garbage cans, right across from the kids' play park.
And the kid, sorry, I don't know. Oh, yes, it is kind of inconspicuous in the
Yeah.
kids' play park. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought maybe somebody had moved it. No, so
Yeah,
it's still there.
no.
Yeah, so-
I looked at the one in the main parking lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So that's a inexpensive quick fix, maybe some help. So.
Okay.
Well, is it serving this purpose where it is? I don't know what's actually written on the code of conduct sign.
It's,
but is it
Helen has a picture of it, maybe she could.
Is it giving
Send
code
it
of
around.
conduct for people who are going to use the play park and come into
No,
it? from a
It's
No,
not
it's
the park
the
in
Smoke
general.
Bluffs
It's,
Park Code of Conduct.
It's the same one as in the lower
Minimize
park.
your noise, park in loggers lane, parking lot, use the toilets, keep dogs under control, cyclists avoid excess speed, avoid monopolizing popular points. And it's pretty big, you know, it's this tall.
Is it gonna fit on the gate?
It'll probably fit on the gate, eh?
Yes, I would imagine.
Is
The
it,
gate of the,
The yellow gate at the play park?
if it's too,
should, yeah.
if it's too big overall tall?
It might be kind of too tall for the gate, but
Yeah.
it should be,
Maybe it should have its own dedicated, but
Yeah.
right by the gate.
yeah, that would be.
Yeah, if it's already on the post, maybe we move the whole sign, the post and everything, or leave it up to John to see what,
Yeah,
He feels would be
I'll
best.
talk to John and we'll.
okay. Louisa?
To add to a couple of points before people getting directed to the wrong spot, it could be worth checking Mountain Project, because I feel like every 20-something is using Mountain Project these days for everywhere. So
I
maybe-
just typed Smoke Bluffs into IMAP, and the first thing it gave me was Smoke Bluff Road, like an address on the Smoke Bluff Road, and then I typed Smoke Bluffs Park, and it gave me the parking lot, the proper parking lot. So it depends what you type in.
So I've got 4 spots that somebody could post sort of a best place to park and maybe, residents quiet zone kind of update things. The Vancouver Meetup Group, Mountain Project, Facebook, and the SAS joint STS on their website. Is there anything else? Chrissy?
I think SAS can take care of the Facebook and Mountain Project. And what were the other ones?
Just your own website.
Yep.
And the Vancouver Meetup Group, I don't know where that is. I don't know how to access
the
it. But
Vancouver Rock Climbing Group.
Vancouver, isn't that on Facebook or is there something
It
else?
is, yeah.
Okay. There's something else like Meetup Vancouver or Meetup Squamish.
There's probably a million of those ones.
It's like some sort of message board.
We'll take care of the Facebook, the social channels for climbers on Facebook.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like I'll share it to ACC Squamish.
So that was an extended discussion about the kiosk map. That was good. We did a bit of talk about no parking as well. I guess if there's anything else on the kiosk map, maybe should we send it out one more time just to see if there's any minor things that someone might have. Helen, would you be able to send the, actually I have it on my Pete put it on my Dropbox, so I'll email a Dropbox link out because there's big files.
You'll email the link, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's a big file. It's
Yeah.
20 megabytes.
Just a question, since I'm not a rock climber, the quiet zone, for one, extends outside the park, but I guess that's fine. On the right-hand side, there's Tunnel Rock. Is there anything in that southeastern corner where people who are living on the end of Plateau may appreciate the quiet zone extending into?
Yeah, I noticed that too. I feel like that might be a little bit of an oversight. I think
Yeah, okay,
we
we can
probably extend that
do
over
that.
to Tunnel Rock too.
Yeah, there's people directly below
Yeah.
Tunnel Rock.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
It'd have to be like pretty loud though to be a Tunnel Rock.
It's around the corner a bit, but there's
Disrupt.
that lower Tunnel Rock area that's like quite close to their house.
I would suggest
Yeah,
let's do one last circulation and a round of comments straight to Helen perhaps, and then Helen, you can send me the map maybe just before the March agenda comes out, and then we'll aim to approve it and then get them printed and installed for
Sounds
the
good.
spring.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Printed, installed in the spring. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda was potentially extending park gate closure hours in the summer. This was brought up by the FMCBC rep. I don't know if there were public comments or if you wanted to chat about that at all. I got a note from Sarah that she had heard that there were some groups that were struggling to finish up what they were doing and get out of the park. I think the gates close at 10.
Park closes at
Would you
10.
like to come
Park
up
closed at
to
10?
the
Is-
table?
You have to come up to the table because it's mine.
Are you looking extended gate closure or actually keeping it open longer? The wording that you use is making it close.
Hi, folks. I'm Barry Janik. I'm the Executive Director for the Federation. And I was asked to make a presentation or a delegation to the committee to request that hours be extended between the months of June and September to allow for people to clear the routes, clean the routes, and get into their vehicles and get off the property. And I think somewhere around before 11, something like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we don't want to impose on the neighbors, of course, but at the same time, we want to get people off the crags before it gets too crazy, and just need to get some sort of indication from the committee whether or not that would be acceptable.
What are the current closure times? Is it between 10 and 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. or
I think it's like 10 and 6.
10 to 6?
That's like for all times.
Is that a
It's probably,
bylaw?
I'm going to assume that's a bylaw, right? Off the top of my head.
I don't know off the top of my head either.
Right?
Do we know BC Parks hours of closure, for example, like Nearlands, what do they do? I suspect they close at 10 o'clock too.
Lots of BC parks, like campgrounds, close at 11,
Okay.
but I don't know what the policy is around here.
We might want
But the
to
chief
rationalize
campground.
them, so.
Does the chief parking lot close? They don't lock the
Not
gate there.
parking lot,
No, because it's
but Muir knows for sure. So.
Alice
No,
Lake?
that gate that goes into the, you know how when you drive up and there's all the paved parking lots? I'm talking about the chief campground now, there's the paved parking lots, and then there's a gate, and then you walk into the camping area, and there's also the drive-in camping. I think that gate closes.
I wonder what time. Yeah, Spencer?
Can you, sorry sir, I can't remember your name. Barry, sorry. The purpose, I think I understood that you said that there were people working on crags and cleaning things up and doing this sort of idea, which is I think a different point in the BC parks. In comparison of the two activities would be different.
Very much so.
So I'm not sure that looking at the comparison of Muir to this piece of property is the same. I wonder maybe if keys to the people who are doing work would help, or it's possible, maybe we can.
I mean, you might have people that, you know, are from out of town that, you know, wouldn't have access to the keys, so I don't think that would be a solution. I think the easiest thing would be to leave the gates open until a set amount of time. You know, let's face it, between the hours, or between the months of June to August, you know, you've got daylight pretty much till 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And people want to be up there until the very last minute, you know. So if there's some way that we could find to extend the hours so that people can get out of there safely without becoming an inconvenience to the neighborhood, which is of course uppermost in our minds, then that would be, you know, a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, also if it's not just route developers that you're hearing from, it's just regular people climbing.
Yeah, no, it's wall walkers.
Spencer, if you could just, it's getting ridiculous now, but you're sitting so far back, you have to get even further back to talk to him, and then he gets back. This is being, you know, recorded.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
get closer to the
Okay,
lights.
we won't
Thanks,
get back,
Kelsey.
we'll get forth.
I'll keep that in mind, thank you. Yeah.
I would suggest that this is probably, we should have operations weigh in because it's critical to their workflow, how they go about closing the gates, that before we kind of make any decision, I would defer to getting their input on the proposal, which we can definitely look into, but I would suggest it's something that Sue and Andy can bring back to the group in March about whether it's even kind of possible for us to do that.
Okay, yeah, like it may be a bylaw too, so it might be more work to amend it.
So let's do some research and then bring it back in March.
Sure,
Okay.
sounds great.
Yeah, we'll make sure it gets on the agenda for March.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Brian, did you want to talk about the Chris McCrum Memorial?
Yes, yes, most of you, I'm sure, know who Chris McCrum was. He was a well-known trail developer, all-around volunteer, did a lot of the early work on the lower Smoke Bluff trail system, and his works is testament to the man himself as a high-quality gentleman. Unfortunately, there seems to have been a bit slow off the ground getting something going for him. So I would like to propose that we install a bench for him in a suitable site, probably above Octopus Gardens. There's a book out there that John Harvey and I have looked at from time to time over the years, which should be cleared out and made a formal lookout. I know the district has protocols around memorial benches, so I'm proposing to sort of something very, very similar to the one that we installed above Octopus Garden a number of years ago for some family out of Quitland whose son died in unfortunate circumstances. Yeah, I'm sure you've all seen it. It's a very cleverly designed driftwood bench, which is very, very low maintenance. So Todd Nichols has kindly, who's a very close friend of Chris McCrum's, has kindly suggested that he would be happy to build us something at a very moderate price, which would be very similar to that and equally long-lasting and low maintenance. The family would provide a suitable plaque, and I've already advised Chris that the plaque should, or I've advised Todd Nichols that the plaque should be of a non-religious nature, secular nature, but leave that up to the family. As far as the costing is concerned, we have no expectations that the committee should pay for this, and I have a brief and informal discussion with Matt Parker, and I think SAS would be also agreeable to cover the cost, which is $600, and I'm sure we can get a few volunteers to cover the installation. So the cost is $600, which we would split between the Squamish Trail Society and Squamish Access Society. If that's agreeable, I would like to move that we move forward in that timely manner.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, Chris's contribution to the park was phenomenal. Yeah, and it's a nice spot up there. It's kind of off the beaten track. It's hidden. People could kind of stumble upon it, and
Yeah.
have some time to themselves up there.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I actually worked with Chris. It was one of my first projects in the Smoke Bluff Park Committee. It was on that section, all that woodworking descending towards Tunnel Rock, and I have fond memories of working with that guy. It was such an incredible working. So anyway, that's my proposal. Do I have a seconder?
So proposed by Brian, seconded by Sean.
Terry, did you catch the wording of that motion?
Is that a motion to council, or are we just gonna do it?
So,
Does that need a motion to council?
It's been done privately, but on
it's
district
being
lands.
done probably, I don't know that we need one.
I mean, I don't want to rain on the parade, but do we have to look at a memorial bench policy
We do
in
have a,
relation to that?
Yes, you do.
we do have a bench, and donation policy, and it'll outline what's required over there.
So
So,
refer it to staff to investigate further.
yeah,
Have you seen that policy?
Yes, we examined that policy at the time we installed the one above Octopus Gardens a number of years ago, and that was conforming with the existing policy at that time. Unless something has changed, this will be pretty well the same thing.
I have no idea if the policy's changed or when.
Do
Yeah,
you,
the policy
Brian, do you
is-
want to send a proof of the plaque and maybe a photo of the existing bench
Sure, so we
to
can do that. That's
yeah, you can send
Asia or something, or to
You
Sue?
can send it over to operations,
Yep.
or send it to myself, and,
Yes, that's easily enough.
Andy does a lot of our bench donation and so forth, so yeah.
Would it be appropriate for the committee to approve it in principle pending that it meets the policy? Is that kind of reasonable?
Yeah, I mean,
Quite a suggestion.
yeah, it's not really a motion to council, but I mean, are we gonna vote on that it's internally that we're all in support of that bench at that location?
Is it likely the policy's changed particularly? Because
I don't think so.
The policy is dated. It's
Sorry?
looking to get the policy is dated, and it is looking to get some upgrades in the near future. So yeah, but please keep in contact with us over that way.
I'll move forward with the contract and we'll send you some bids.
Jenna?
I'll just suggest some wording. So I'll move that the committee support the installation of a memorial bench for Chris McCrum in line with district policy and funded by the Squamish Access Society and the Squamish Trail Society.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we want to include a location for that or not?
I think we'll just leave it with the direction of general
Okay,
support.
so is that a motion to council then, and
This,
I'll second it?
you seconding it?
Then you all call the question. All those in favor?
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Discussion.
Is there discussion more on that?
I just wonder if we're looking for a name for the parking lot, Craig, is there any consideration for,
Are you moving on to the roundtable section, or are we? Going back.
it's kind of combining the original item about the parking lot, Craig, being named and a memorial for Chris McCrum, so I'm just
Okay.
wondering if there's any consideration for,
Are you in touch with his family? And
Yeah, well, indirectly through Tom
Yeah.
Nichols, and I think the selected site seems to have found favour with the family as far as I know. So it's a quiet, contemplative place. The parking lot, Craig, doesn't strike me as.
Where is it, Brian?
As you do the Upper Loop Trail, okay, as you crest on the Upper Loop Trail and start heading over towards Tunnel Rock, there's a lookout area there that is seldom visited.
Okay.
But we would develop that area and make it more obvious, and
Nice.
it overlooks the town and the estuary and so on.
Yeah.
So,
it's right across from where the trail goes towards Skunk Hollow there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'm not suggesting we consider changing the location of the bench, but could there also be consideration for naming, if we're looking for a name for parking lot Craig, could it be McCrum Craig?
Yeah, or if the parking lot's not really where he would want to have his name memorialized, maybe another crag. If I know there's a new crag that no one's done any work on yet, just north of One Tooth there. Maybe that would be the Chris McCrum Memorial Crag, or Chris's Crag or something.
But given that the bulk of his work and his drive in the park was for the trail network, okay, he basically designed that trail network. So So it's my sense that it should reflect his work in the trail system. Chris was ahead in this time. He wasn't terribly passionate about rock climbing. He was more a ski mountaineer. So
Okay.
I don't think he would much care about a parking lot track, to be quite honest.
Or any crag maybe.
Yeah. So I'm open to all their suggestions, but that seems to me a very good location. So.
Okay, Chrissy, did you have?
I just wanted to note that I do think that crag that you mentioned, it has been developed by, it's been like a bit, I believe Robin Barley was developing there. Are you talking about the one behind One Tube that's got a bunch of roots that have grown over, and then it was brought up for discussion recently in the climbing community?
I can't quite, you can kind of, it might even be outside of the park. Can we zoom in on One Tube there, Asia?
I think Jay Green put in a bunch of
Yeah,
roots there.
I know
too.
Jay Green put in the
Yeah.
one that goes onto that big like overhanging thing.
So it might have a historical name, or like I think Robin Barley also put a bunch of roots there too.
Yeah, I don't think anything's finished really, but
Okay.
it should be. I think we talked about maybe doing something about, I don't know, putting a sign, or, you know, maybe the next trail day could be put a
One
short trail into
It's
there.
never been popular for some reason.
I know, it should be.
Yeah, it would take very little to improve the trail.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. In that circle between the dotted line and the orange line north of One Tooth there, there's that poorly developed crag. Yeah, I mean, there's all this crag development like at Parking Lot and at Crack Rock and Crag X, and just to spread the crowds out. But if there's any more work that could be done, or anyone wants to do any work, like One Tooth and that crag north of there, there's some good 5/8s and some good moderates in there.
Yeah, we're already overwhelmed with crag commitments.
There's only so many ones right next to the parking lot we can find. Okay, but I digress. Okay, I added a crag work group item. Brian, you're continuing?
There isn't a lot to add since we have been discussing the parking lot crag for quite a while. That is obviously a nice new addition to the park. Again, it's a fairly social area, which will probably merit a picnic table at some point in time to sort of capture the typically family groups that are climbing on this fairly easy project. Also, the ever-present Harry Young has been working on Crag X and has done a fair amount of restoration up there, so it's again a nice addition to the park that is falling out of favour just through disuse. So that is all that is happening at this time, but I expect crag work will pick up as the season progresses.
Could we zoom in on the parking lot crag, or just pull it down to it there? So the plan, as I understand it, is to do some work at the base of the crag. Right now it's like blackberry bushes and dense shrubs, and everything is right up against the rock face. And then there's a short gap with like a fairly well-used trials trail right there.
The crag probably wouldn't have been discovered without that trail being built.
There was solid bushes right up to it, except for the trials trail. So what we intend to do is to do some clearing of about, I don't know, 5 or 10 meters away from the crag to beat back some of those blackberry bushes and keep them from encroaching. And then also allow a space against the crag for people to set up their gear, and then have a separated space with logs or rocks or something for the trials trail to continue around that area. Some of the gravel from the Neat and Cool area is going to get trucked down there by the district. But before that happens, I'm going to contact the contractor who does all the chipping for BC Hydro. Around the corner, you've probably seen them on the side of the highway, the small machine with the rotary chipper on the end of it. It's really the only way to get rid of that dense of shrubs and blackberry. See if BC Hydro wants to chip in on that or pay for that. And then if the contractor can't do it and BC Hydro doesn't want to do it, then potentially I'll get a quote from him and see if the Smoke Bluff Park Committee wants to use some of their budget for that. So I think it's worthwhile. It's definitely a easy access, sort of family oriented crag. It'd be worthwhile having a nicely graded area at the base, and definitely a picnic table in the future. Spencer?
Well, just given the popularity of that area and the fact that trials motorcycles do travel through there reasonably frequently, not all the time, it may be a good use of a sign.
A sign?
Yes.
What kind of a sign?
Well, just something to remind people that, it is a multi-use trail. It was originally built as a trail to access that, like I say, the secondary access up onto the rock bluff.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as they sort of can expect the potential that a motorcycle will come through there, then it kind of lessens some of the anxiety when we actually do.
Yeah, and just to keep gear off the trail.
Yes.
And keep your gear to the sort of the climbing
Yeah.
area at the base. Yeah, we could look into that. Once it's all cleared out and we figure out where the access is going to be and.
Yeah, as it develops, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Wes, is that line, the north border of the parking lot, is that pretty accurate? Because it looks like it extends into the mineral lease parking area.
The yellow line looks like it goes
It does.
into the mineral lease area. I don't know if that's accurate, the park boundary. Did you get that
Got
from?
that from the district.
You got that from the
website,
district?
Yeah.
I think
It's quite likely that it's not correct, but
Mm.
I did some surveying, I think at one time, hiking up and looking at some old pegs that were up in the forest above it. And I thought that northern boundary kind of aligned right on that berm that comes
The
across.
berm just
South of
below
the
the
road?
yellow line there?
Just below the
Just below
yellow
the road?
line, there's a berm that comes through there.
It's all covered in invasive species.
Yeah. But
Japanese
it would
knotweed,
be
I think.
where the dotted line goes north and then swings to the right over to the yellow line. That would be basically the sort of the edge of the berm is what it's actually butting up against. Comes through the little dip and then comes up and turns right, and the berm is right across where that black dotted line is at the north end. So I think it is, I think
So
you're
it's
right.
like one
Alan.
dash too far north.
I think the dashed line is too far north. I'm pretty sure it is.
Would anyone at the district want to undertake a land survey and confirm the north boundary of the park and then provide it to Ellen for the map?
Oftentimes aerial photos don't completely align with
Yeah.
property boundaries, so you can't necessarily bank on that. But it is crown land to the north, so it could be that there was some encroachment when the road was built. Unless it's of large concern to the group, I wouldn't necessarily think it's worthwhile pursuing that.
I thought I was told at one time that was private actually on the flats there. Crown to the north of the main park boundary, but private to the north of this piece of property. I could be very wrong.
Yeah, I can just poke around a bit on GIS and see if there's,
Sure.
I can clarify anything easily by pulling legal plans
Okay.
and looking at the ownership. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can do
the
that.
district's web map is quite good for having all the land ownership layers that you can toggle on and off. Chrissy?
I wouldn't think that it really matters. Like the people are going to be using the kiosk map. Like, I mean, maybe like the odd person will be like, oh, that road is in the park.
Who
that
built
little
that road in the
we
park?
can walk on there. But like, I think for the most part, people are just looking at the crags. Like I think the park, like it's park boundaries, like a bit arbitrary for the use of the map.
Well, there's all sorts of stuff on the map that's not in the park anyway, so I also don't think it's a huge issue that the district maybe should spend too much time on, but
I'll spend 5 minutes on
Okay.
it, and if I find something interesting, I will let you know.
okay.
Okay.
Carolyn?
The disclaimer you put at the bottom, I mean, doesn't it kind of say like this might be, some things might not be right on target? I mean, that could be part of that thing, that encompasses that area.
Yeah. Yeah, and it could also be the imagery that's
Yeah.
slightly off. I mean, imagery now is pretty well georeferenced, but every once in a while there's an issue with it. So, I mean, the dotted line is like 10 meters wide or something too,
Yeah.
so.
I'd be really sad if somebody came back and was like, what is this?
Yeah, this is below you.
Yeah.
I pay my taxes.
Fraud, I would be really upset.
Could ask them to join the committee, and, you know, it's a working committee.
Thanks, Holly. We're not gonna send you back to review.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments on the car park, sort of crag upgrades or any other crags that need work or in the park? Anyone notice anything?
We have a cragkeeper program ongoing in the park. Probably Alpine Club and the DCMC will be doing some work in the park this year, so hopefully. So.
Do you know what areas they're going to target?
We started on Roland's Corner, and we want to move left and climbers left on Roland's Corner. Requires a significant amount of retro scrubbing, and that's got half done, I believe, last year by a group from Climb On, I believe.
Okay.
But they ran out of steam a little bit. It's hard work, and
no one wants a retro scrub.
It's an uphill battle, but we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
I just want to give a shout out to the maintenance crew at the Smoke Bluff, if you could pass it on. I went into the Bluffs right after that big snowstorm with my snowshoes, and all of the stairways were cleared. I was just amazed. So I think that John or whoever it was that did that should be, you know,
Kudos out to John.
kudos to him, yeah, because he probably went out in the midst of that storm.
I think more than once.
Like seriously, he must have.
And I think he was by himself too. He didn't have any helpers at all.
Dedicated individual.
I was very pleasantly surprised because I was thinking, ooh, the stairs, that's going to be tricky because he can't see anything. But yeah, it's all cleared.
I'll be happy to pass
Yes,
that,
please do.
pass that on.
I shoveled the stairs once, and it's a lot of work for sure. Yeah. I've only shoveled one of the stairs. He did all of them.
Yes.
Okay, there was an item from the previous minutes that I don't know if it got fully addressed, but something about road signage on Loggers Lane, directing traffic to the Smoke Bluffs. We were talking about trying to get one of those official district signs added saying Smoke Bluffs Park this way. I don't know if that got followed through on, or if that's still something that people want to see happen. I know there's on the highway, there's that technical rock climbing highway sign that says this way, but is there something that maybe the district wants to look into signage that says Smoke Bluffs Park this way, you know,
So
parking.
part of the wayfinding.
The wayfinding, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think I raised that at the last meeting, actually. This is our flagship park, that when a stranger coming out from Seattle would not find a sign to Smoke Bluffs Park readily accessible. So it seems rather strange that it was not included in the original Wayfinder.
And is this for, you're looking for like on the Sea to Sky or right on Loggers Lane itself?
I guess right at the turnoff to Loggers Lane from the highway, somewhere near there.
Near Alice, sort of Rose Park area.
Yeah. Chris?
That might be out of the, like, that, you'd have to get approval from the Ministry of Transportation too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it can be included in part of some of the wayfinding that's already transpiring for.
Yeah, if there's a wayfinding committee or if there's a
There is a wayfinding committee.
team working on it, maybe just put that forward to them. Asia, are you on that committee?
I'm not, I don't know how functional or active they are, but Sue or I will try to endeavor to follow up on if there is any plans for wayfinding signage for 2020.
Okay, there may not be
Yeah, I
plans
see
for
heads shaking and
wayfinding.
I'm also like, I think there's no budget and we're not doing any signs this year.
Okay, well, we'll continue to bring it up at these meetings, and you can continue to say there's no budget until there is. And then there was also some correspondence just that in the past couple of weeks with, what's her name, from the park, who may want to help us out with a bit of a park use study, Asia. What was her name? Who we were emailing with today or yesterday?
Leslie?
Leslie, yes. She said that she might be able to provide some services or provide us with some background on what's been done in the past about park use, sort of numbers of users and types of users. I think she said she did either a survey or an informal survey at the park gate at one time. But I think, Mike, you might have brought up trying to do some sort of not necessarily a whole gross park use study, but just like user numbers, like figure out how many people are actually using it, what people are actually doing in the park, and how we can maybe better serve those people.
Yeah, I think Spencer had brought that up, and I was in favor of some kind of a, maybe what I can't recall, but some kind of a study, so we are understanding who's coming to the park, where are they from, are they locals, are they tourists, are they here to climb, hike, walk their dogs, pass them on a bike, trials ride, take pictures, sit, think, whatever they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know really. So it'd be interesting to kind of gather some of that data, I think, before we do make too many more changes.
So Leslie agreed to come to the March meeting to discuss all of this. So maybe before the March meeting, we could all kind of pool some questions that we might have that we could kind of give to her beforehand, so she would have something to talk about. Sort of the feasibility of doing something like that, maybe what's been done in the past, and maybe some specifics on what questions we want to have answered, or what questions that we as a committee might want to ask her.
Does this person have a background in this?
She works for the district. She could you?
She's the executive director of tourism Squamish.
Oh, Leslie Weeks.
So Leslie Weeks. So the past summer they collected a bunch of tourism and visitor related data, and I guess some of it was at Smoke Bluffs Park, but it sounds like it wasn't consistent or directly related to getting the information kind of around usage of the park necessarily. More it was targeted at like, where are you from, like how much money are you spending, how many days are you spending here. It was more general.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions or information that they'd want to sort of request from her, try and get that out to her before the next meeting in March, so she has time to dig into it.
Is Leslie able to do that as the tourism director?
Is she able to do what?
Well, I'm just wondering if that's,
I
is that
have
in
a
her
feeling
role?
the discussion would be more about like synergies or opportunities, like what are they planning, and does that align with kind of what you guys, kind of the data collection that you might be looking for, just to see if there's any opportunities there. But I don't necessarily think that she would be like, oh, Smoke Bluffs wants this data, I shall go out and collect it. That's not the relationship that would be happening here.
So she wouldn't be running a park user study per se?
Definitely not.
I didn't think that would be her mandate. And do we ever have discussions with, as you just said, it kind of turned on the light for me. What is tourism's plan for the Smoke Bluffs Park? And what is our, because they're marketing, they're doing Instagram and Facebook posts and sending people all over the place. Do we as a park committee have any response back to tourism? They clearly have an agenda and they're doing things. Do we know what those things are? And are we collaborating with them to make sure that we're protecting the interests of all the users and residents while supporting tourism in the district?
Those sounds like good things that you should put down in an email, and then Leslie can talk about all that for sure.
It's good.
Chrissy?
I just have a question for you, Councillor Stoner. And with that respect, would that correspond with the council's goals for the year, or the, like, I remember Eric had pointed out to some strategic goals on one of these signs here regarding like the park use.
Yeah, that's actually a really good flag.
correspond.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me about that. So I do think that would be a really helpful thing to have Leslie come in and kind of discuss about like the direction that Tourism Squamish is going and potential synergies. I think that could be really helpful, just more generally. There is a component of Council's strategic plan around increasing the utilization of our spaces, both indoor and outdoor. And I believe Gary is looking into, so our Director of Planning is looking into doing a neighborhood spaces and places utilization study. So how are different areas within the community being used and by which user groups? Whether that will be specific to Smoke Bluffs Park, it might be one of the areas that is chosen as part of that study, but I don't know if it'll go as deep as you might want it to. But we can definitely reach back out to Gary
For sure.
and see where that project's at.
Yeah, I can add to that. So Gary's kind of recruited me to,
Great.
but it hasn't gone anywhere at this point. We're starting with an inventory of what park space we do have, and not just parks, but also rights of ways and other areas that are publicly available before we kind of dive into any sort of usage survey or study. So yeah, 2020 work plan.
Okay. That's it for regular business. Is the council, status of recommendations to council. There was one motion to council about installing 2 urine diversion composting toilets in the park. Jenna, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, happy to speak to that. I do think that on the budget update, there was an item in there that suggested that they're still looking for quotes specifically. I can report out on the current 2020 budget does not have this in as a line item specifically at this point. So unfortunately, it just didn't quite make the cut with all the shuffling that we've been trying to do in the 2020 budget. But as that quote comes back and we look into the next budget, and or if there's other partnership sort of opportunities with grants and things like that, we're happy to keep our eye out.
Okay. Is anyone actively looking into like where the funding could come from for those grants, or does anyone here want to maybe talk to anyone else about trying to help with that?
I want to say too, I think we're also just looking at, is it feasible to have them in there first?
Okay.
I think you had mentioned, sorry Brian, you had mentioned there was one, was it at Murin?
Yeah,
Park?
I spearheaded the one at Murin.
Yeah.
And,
And we're looking to talk to Mr. Glover through, to find out whether it's something that could be done there or not, because I know some of the rules have changed
Yep.
over time for some of these toilets, so.
my sense is that the system would be very, very suitable for Octopus Gardens, the upper area of the park. Not so much so down in the parking lot. I don't think it would be workable in the lower parking lot for various technical reasons. But certainly it would be an excellent fit as far as I know. It would have to be reviewed by health authorities. But if it passed health authorities, I think it would be an excellent replacement for the Octopus Garden.
And did you forward on information about that?
Yes, I sent Gary all this information.
Oh, you sent Gary all the information? Okay, very good.
And I'd be happy to walk anybody in the district through the one at Murin, which has been very successful. One of SAS's flagship projects for sure. Has been very well received. So.
Okay. Thanks for giving us the update on that. Hopefully they can find somewhere in the 2020 budget if there's some leftovers, or in the 2021 budget. It's definitely a priority. There is an outhouse at Octopus Garden, but it's pretty gross and it's getting kind of full. It's there might be some capacity left in there, but not much. So
It's done well, but its time is done.
yeah, for the amount of users that are in the park and in the remote area of Octopus Garden, the nearest outhouse is quite a hike away. Yeah, the amount of human waste up there is going to start getting out of hand if something's not done about an outhouse up there. And it's one of the easiest, most photographed, first climb, like first lead. Everybody goes straight to Octopus Garden. Like, it's a very popular crag. There's a lot of people up there. Okay. Any referrals from council?
No.
Okay. There was the correspondence about the parking on Northridge. Okay, so the motion passed by council is that the correspondence referred to Smoke Bluffs Park Committee. So have we discussed that already? That sort of our response is going to be to get the word out on social media that there's proper parking at the north end, and that we've put no parking signs on the kiosk map. What else have we done? We're, as stewards of the park as climbers will mention to people that the parking is only at the parking lot?
I think her letter too alluded specifically to the Squamish planning group, so I think like that'll cover that part of her letter, us posting just one of the reasons why I was like, we'll post it to Facebook and SAS and Mountain Project, and that way it should satisfy her her reaching out to the climbing community, or her recommendation that it be in the climbing community's responsibility. Which
Okay. So someone from the district will get back to her with our
Yeah, so
discussions?
the motion from council was that the correspondence was referred to engineering for a response, so she has received a response from district staff, and I think because it explicitly asked for something to be sent to the climbing community is why we referred it to this committee, just so you folks know, and I think that is really super helpful if you guys can do a little bit of additional messaging going into the 2020 season. That'd be great.
Okay, and you'll convey to her that we've attempted to address her concerns. Okay. Okay, roundtable. Mike?
Okay, my neighbor across the street is Robin Barley. He brought me a handwritten note with an idea he has when my dog ate the note. So try and tell you what it says.
You smelled Robin on the paper.
So I remember what he said. I just thought I'd write the thing with the note. It's funny.
I wouldn't put it past him to give it to you like that.
Yeah, well, it's possible. It was rained on it. Pulled it out of a wet pocket. Skullduggery area, does anyone know where that is?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's right near Fata Morgana there.
I must have been down at the loss.
Just Jade,
yeah, so
just at the turnoff to the trail that goes up towards Split Beaver. Is that Skullduggery? It's a big offwit that.
is it called Bughouse Heights?
Yeah.
I think it's up in that general area.
Yeah.
Okay. So his idea was there's a nice rock there that, and again, I do come a little bit, but nothing like you guys do. I have seen it. There's a little crag in there that's kind of undeveloped, and he is wondering if there's any appetite for the committee to look at scraping an area out there so that there can be a little redevelopment in there. And
Robin's asking permission.
he knows that's so he's going, look at this. It's great. Anyway, no, he is. He asked me to bring that up at the committee tonight.
There's something going on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, so Skullduggery, if there's any appetite to scrape out a landing down there, and
He's welcome to go and scrape out a line.
can I tell him that that's okay? Or?
Yeah, oh yeah, if he's asking permission, or is he asking for someone
You know what
to
I
go
think
there
he
with
was
a machine?
specifically asking, and this may be the bit that was eaten. If the machine is in and out of there again,
Oh, okay.
if it can just scrape a landing, so
Okay.
that there's a landing down. I think that was part of his request too. I don't know if the machine will be up there anytime soon, but he thought if it could just drag a shovel, create a little flat area for that.
Sure. I don't see any issue with that.
No, I don't either. I know I want to be supervised by John, not.
I wouldn't want Robin supervising the machine.
I don't know, the last time John supervised a machine or somebody supervised it, it kind of got out of control.
Well, that was not entirely his fault, I don't think so. It's just John's enthusiasm.
Kind of my point.
I have every confidence in John's ability to manage the park in that sense.
Anyway, I'm just passing that message on. I don't know how it would be handled or exactly the approach, but
Yeah,
Robin asked me to show that.
sure. I don't know what the schedule is for maintenance using a machine either. I don't know if the park maintenance contractor has any plans for doing any major ditching or trail grading or anything. But just maybe if you're talking to him, mention that there was a request to take a look at the base of the Skullduggery area. John should know where that is.
Yeah, you should talk to John.
Pardon?
You talk to John about it.
Sure.
Would you bring Robin with you?
Yeah, I did tell him in a second, so I'm not sure if that's gonna happen.
Okay, Spencer? Or do you have anything else?
Well, anything that's happening in that lower parking lot, I think is great. When you come into the park, that parking area feels really scruffy and not very cool to me. It's almost the worst part of the most awesome park. So I'm in favor of anything that we do down there. Also, obviously supporting what Spencer's saying, though, if there's some development down there, make sure that that trail is very well signed and people are aware that there'll be likely motorcycles passing through there. Which made me also think of the commuter trail. Sometimes people are setting gear up on the path when people are trying to pass through and get to work or get to wherever they're trying to get to from Squamish. So it just made me think of signage on trails, flow of people. The parking lot's a busy area, the commuter trail is a busy area. If we're doing any signage projects, those are things perhaps that we could say in the future.
Is there something on the code of conduct that says anything about keep gear off the trails or keep trails clear or share the trails or anything like that? I mean, there's a text box on the map there that says be respectful or whatever of other trail users. So
I think it's just common courtesy.
yeah, it's sometimes the trail's pretty narrow, and I mean, if you're got your backpack and your gear spills out, you see someone coming, you clean it
No,
up.
there's
and move it
not.
over.
I'm looking at the picture.
There's not a lot of crags that are right on the trail, but there are a handful for sure.
No, it says cyclists avoid excess speed, avoid monopolizing climbs. And then noise impact, it doesn't say anything about gear on trails.
Yeah, I guess if there's any signage updates that's occurring, we can consider adding something like that.
And then the last thing I'll say before I pass the conch on to Spencer is that Spencer's had this idea for a temporary moratorium on building new trails. I'm in favor of that idea that he's had, and I'm very in favor of the concept of kind of continuing to investigate sort of park carrying capacity, who the users are, how are we going to coordinate with Tourism Squamish, how are we going to handle the crowds of people that are here, really. So, conch.
You said it.
Yes.
Yeah, I've already said it, my bit about the trail moratorium, so it's on to you.
I'm good. I passed.
Thanks. Really late. I don't want to take up more time, but I do really want to have at some point the discussion around fecal matter in the park. But I don't want to keep everyone on for too long tonight. So maybe what I was thinking is if we could go to our respective groups and just kind of think about what we want the summer to look like, knowing that there are a lot of people that come. I know that even at one point CASBC wanted to put out poop bags for humans to use, and if you're going to clean up after your dog, clean up after yourself, kind of things.
Some people do.
Exactly. It's just, I just really don't, it's upsetting sometimes when I've heard friends who've said like, my dog is so bad, like he'll eat poop, and I'm like, you know, it's probably not the dog's fault, and animals are getting in trouble and humans are getting in trouble. And so it's just kind of what can we expect for the summer, despite all the outhouses we have. And you've just mentioned that Octopus's Garden might be overflowing. So what mitigation can we do regarding that? And we are kind of the Smoke Bluffs, and the last thing we want to do is be like, you know, smells bad in there, and for us to be like, oh, we kind of knew about it, but we didn't really act on it. That's it. So go to your respective groups, think of maybe some ideas, or if you've got some now, but just how to be preventative.
Do you feel it would be a worthy agenda item for a
Poop.
subsequent
The
meeting?
poop item.
Yeah, because I agree with you. I think it needs a larger time to discuss.
Yeah. And we're already kind of late, and I don't want to take up more time.
Yeah, so I feel an agenda
Yeah.
item for a subsequent meeting.
But also to think about it, so we don't just come to the next meeting with like, just so we have kind of thought out plans for each of them.
Have you sort of looked into the US model? They're very much into this in Mount Rainier National Park now. You basically have to pack your poop out.
I love it. I agree. Like I totally. But my biggest thing is even at the Callahan, because we've got those dog trails. People are like, "Oh, my dog just runs ahead of me, and I don't even know what's happened." And I'm like, "That's great, but you know, like, how can we?"
It's also poor dog ownership if we don't know any dogs.
Yeah, and I just don't. I'm trying to find ways that we can kind of reduce, even on the trail. Like I know off the trail it happens, and we don't know, but just especially if it's raining a lot, all comes down.
To be quick, you're speaking of human waste rather than animal waste.
Yeah, a bit of both, like.
Both, yeah.
Like, I mean, if your dog's.
Management of waste.
Yeah, if your dog's running ahead of you and you know he's ran into the woods and you just kind of go like, somebody else's problem, it becomes a bigger problem eventually. But I'm not a dog whisperer, that's Cesar Suarez or whatever his name is. But just go back to your groups, maybe come up with some ideas, and we can have a constructive discussion next time. That won't take an hour.
Okay. I mean, some of the things we've already done is to put up those no pooping in the woods stickers on every single signpost, I think almost in the park has one of those stickers on it. We're installing a new seasonal outhouse at Tunnel Rock. We've installed a new sign across from Neat and Cool that says outhouse this way. So I think, I mean, we're trying.
Yeah, and it's also like, what can we do with our groups? We represent so many groups, so what can we do? And maybe we can get some ideas. So for instance, what is the US doing? Is that something that we're willing to look into? So that's just an idea.
Could we, actually there's the one outhouse at Crack Rock there, I know sometimes it doesn't have any toilet paper in it. It's,
Beyond its best as well.
yeah, I mean, Helen went in there, there's toilet paper in there.
I fully expected it to be utterly gross.
Yeah.
But it was toilet paper.
So, I mean, that might be just continuing to ensure that there's toilet paper in all the facilities is probably a good way to keep people using them. So I don't know what the toilet paper patrol schedule is, but maybe we could look into that just to make sure that there's the facilities are tidy or well stocked.
John does, he goes through the areas and we provide him with the TP,
Okay.
so I'll double check with John.
Okay.
I don't think I have anything additional to add.
You can't join unless you say something.
What's that?
You can't join this committee unless you say something.
I feel like I did have a special item at the very beginning on business arising.
Okay, well then.
You did bring the treats also, so
And
you
she
can
brought
stay.
that motion forward, so that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm good too, and I am trying my best to keep track of all the various items that we're gonna bring forward in March, so we'll try to be super productive this year.
I have two items. One is, I don't know if it was discussed at the priorities last time, I wasn't able to make it, but when you walk up the stairs from Tunnel Rock, between the stairs and Elephant's Arse, the steps there that would have been built at one time are flipping over.
Yeah,
And
it's,
could do with a bit of love.
they're nearly 20 years old now, so
Yeah.
they're getting there ready for replacement. You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
so I think they should, there's definitely erosion
I
happening.
believe John was looking at that, and
Oh, great.
and if it's the same area that I'm thinking he was speaking of, that I asked him to look at it, what a price would be to repair that for for 2021.
My second item, Matt, did you get any chocolates? They missed the distribution of chocolates, and I wanted to make sure that that was okay.
Was that your item? Chocolates?
Yeah, it was. It was like.
Are there any extra chocolates?
I was like, I hope you get some yeah.
Matt, your chocolates are at the front.
Yeah, no, we should go get them.
Want chocolates? Barry's been to a couple of meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are.
We got lots of chocolate left over.
Doesn't matter.
I love those
Okay.
things.
Never too much.
Helen?
Two things. Should that trail at the north end of parking lot rock, should that be orange, or are you okay with it black?
I feel like it should be orange, just to
Alrighty.
make sure there's no conflicts, reduce conflicts.
And
Maybe
but the little thing going to the rock.
that
from
can
the
stay
parking lot
black, I think, because
yeah.
that's the way people are
But
going to
the
access the
circle-
crag, but the
yeah,
circle
okay,
probably should be
yeah.
orange.
Okay.
Yeah, the parking for the trials motorcycles is from the southern little spur that comes
Where the
in.
P is there, the P for
Oh,
parking.
right. Yeah.
But then they come in
Yeah.
that way and they head north, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And my other thing was, when is that seasonal toilet going to be installed?
We talked about May, I think, didn't we?
Yeah,
At least
I
that
do.
was-
Once we open up the campground, and
Okay.
there's a few areas that we add additional porta potties, so it all goes on that
Okay.
one slip.
If the one by Crack Rock is gross, could a Carney's toilet be put there, maybe, a porta potty? If- I
Yeah,
don't know.
maybe.
And Are there other places where toilets could be put?
So the trouble is getting a truck up there
Yeah.
to service it,
Yeah.
and the road might be too steep, but I was gonna talk to GFL about if they have like a smaller pickup
Okay.
style pumper truck rather than the
And
big
they
one
can-
that could
they
make it
can-
up there.
They can get up to the Tunnel Rock one?
They can get up to the Tunnel Rock one, yeah, they
Okay.
do maintenance on that all the time.
Okay, and is there, in the interim, is it possible to tamp down or excavate a little bit the Octopus Garden one to give it another?
Put some lye in there maybe or
Yeah.
something, like is there some maintenance that can be done?
Spray some Lysol.
Do you want like one of those tampers?
Yeah, like.
We can give you one, I'll buy you one.
Yeah, maybe lye, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, can the district maybe look into what can be done to extend the life of
Yes.
that outhouse? Because the
Cap it, new one, I don't know.
are you guys allowed, I mean, it's there, are you allowed to maintain it? I know it's like not built to health code regulations, but things have changed, it's grandfathered. Can you guys look into if there's anything that can be done up there to extend its life?
Just 1 year, because didn't make the budget this year.
Yeah, yeah, because the new toilet didn't make the budget, maybe you could find some room to go and maintain the existing one.
Sure, there's like some algae or bacteria that would just eat the poop, right? You don't just need a
Take a
microbiologist.
Take a bunch of worms up there, they usually eat light.
Not the dogs.
I don't think of it.
David, put the dogs in it.
This is my turn.
Yeah, your turn.
Okay,
No, not at the next meeting, that's not your idea.
So I think that we might want to defer to the next meeting, but I just was wondering if the district had an update on, we discussed, I believe at the last meeting, I think we put forward a motion to start the process for an official park dedication.
Yeah, that definitely hasn't fallen off of staff's radar. And I think, yeah, when we get further into the year in March, perhaps it's something to pursue. I don't have the capacity to do it right this instant, but it's definitely something that, it hasn't sunk to the bottom. Like, we would love to get that going.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all for me.
Nothing for me.
Nothing per se for the park, but I would like to advise the committee president that Christine McKay, not having learned her lesson chairing the Smoke Bluff Committee effectively for a number of years, has now undertaken to chair the Smoke Bluff Park Committee.
This SAS.
I'm sorry, the
But not
Scottish-
officially there
the
yet. We
Squamish
still have
Access
voting
Society.
to do. We haven't officially voted that in. but-
You are going to be.
You're going to be acclaimed. You-
Okay.
whether
No
you
one
like
else
it or not.
wanted.
So congratulations on your appointment.
I have to learn my lessons.
It's a very long.
Anything else, Brian?
Nope. Just a thank you to Helen and you guys for the Kiosk map. It's a very fun job. So.
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
I just wanted to maybe just refresh everyone's memories or just bring up that BC Hydro transmission line right away. Vegetation management season usually starts in March and goes for a month or so until the songbird window, and then they take a break and they come back in the fall. So I know that Penny Lane area is getting pretty tall. The veg in there is getting pretty tall. And the last time they went in there,
They just cut back.
the last time they went in there was 4 years ago now or something, but that stuff grows like 2-3 meters a year.
Only
So
4 years ago.
yeah, it grows so fast in there. So how did people feel when it was cleared? Did people enjoy the climbing environment at Penny Lane when there was no veg there? It was a lot sunnier.
I miss the shade quite.
It's nice when it's shady, but do we want to keep going with this kind of boom and bust that they're doing? Like let it grow up into a forest and then clear cut it? Or do we want to try and have them maintain it more as a low growing shrub community that never gets above a couple meters tall? I mean, what does the committee feel about that? Because I might have some sway with BC Hydro there.
Well, I think you guys know that my job outside of this job is a professional firefighter, and I actually just sat in on a 8-hour course with all about interface fires and communities. from an interface standpoint, and I'm not acting in this role here, this is just my opinion, it would be good to actually bring our fire department in, and we had members of the Squamish Fire Department in on this course as well. It might be very prudent and wise to keep that area clear, given the fact that we have a forest abutting residential neighborhoods. So despite any emotions around shade, and like, I personally think it's very pretty to have trees there, but it's also not very smart to have trees there. So I think it'd be very prudent to look at keeping it clear.
Yeah, I would also tend to agree, and also the longer they leave it, the bigger the fire hazard gets when it does get left on the ground. And they brought in the chipper last time, and it was noisy that was before you lived there, I think. It was super noisy though for a long time. So if they can treat it more regularly, or treat it with like a targeted herbicide on the taller stems and just let the shrubs grow up and shade out the tall growing stems, that would be potentially a way to go. But what does everyone think about that?
Is that what they're trying to do by neat and cool?
Yeah, or mosquito.
Mosquito?
Yeah.
And do you think, is it working?
I haven't looked closely, but
it looked okay to me last time I walked through there.
it looks like it's pretty clear still, right?
It looks,
Yeah.
and it's just low shrubs.
Yeah, that's what they did there. They
Yeah.
went through and
And I
it
know
was
they
a
planted whole
mega
bunches.
forest there,
Yeah,
and then
I know.
they basically took the chipper in there and,
Yeah.
and cleared everything, and then they did a targeted herbicide application of the stumps post clearing, and not much has come back. And then we also did plant about 3,000
Yeah.
shrubs in there.
And
So, yeah.
would they be willing to do that
I think so.
anyway?
Yeah, I think that's, if everybody
I'm in
is in
favor of
agreement, then maybe that's the model that we should try and pursue with them for that area.
And I would add the district should probably reach out to fire and ask for their guidance as to how exactly that's done. I actually don't know for sure if chips on the ground are suitable in the interface area. So maybe it's best to drop the trees that are there and move them to one side and keep fuel-free zone, if you're thinking about it from a fire standpoint. So perhaps some coordination with fire.
I think BC Hydro has their own guidelines for doing that, and in the work that I've done before with them is that as long and working with fire specialists and doing this stuff, as long as the chip piles are not more than 30 to 50 centimeters deep, then you don't end up with that internal heating and internal combustion. As long as the chip piles are shallow enough that they'll break down fast enough and it will contribute to the fire hazard. And plus the amount of veg in there that looks like it's a lot, but they can also, when they're chipping, they can turn the chipper head and they can blow the chips in a wide area, so the chips don't actually contribute too much. It might be worse if we just buck it all up and eat it.
Again, I could get very specific, I won't right in this room, it's not the place for it. But I think just hydro and fire coordinating together, is that more than anything, that's what that is it's a fire break in the interface area.
Yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
extremely important.
Fire break,
Yeah.
key, also keeps the crags dry, and it's sunny in the winter for climbing.
That's true.
Jen?
On that point, the Squamish Fire, it does have, I think it's $25,000 grant to do, this is their second or third year of doing fire maintenance throughout the community. So they do have a plan on which areas they're targeting through this summer. I'm not sure what they are, but it may be worth just touching base with them and letting them know that there's work going to be happening in some blocks as well.
Okay. I wouldn't want Squamish Fire to necessarily have to do any work on BC Hydro's property.
No, they wouldn't be able to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a really quick question, and this is like, I don't know much about like fire and fuel management, but the one thing that occurred to me is having like a little bit of vegetation might act as like a bit of a sound barrier to some of the neighbors. So like, is it possible to have some of that like lower shrubbery without it like creating like a constant path to the forest kind of thing, or to the homes, or or is it just like a solid line, like vegetation like is fuel?
Yeah, so a fire break typically is brought down right to mineral soil.
Okay.
And sometimes a fire break is quite narrow, depending on the type of fire. If it's a creeping ground fire, if it's a raging fire, like a crowning fire coming up and over the smoke bluffs, which that'd be crazy if that was to ever happen, but it could. A big break like we have with the hydro lines is actually quite a beneficial thing that we have it. So for a big crowning fire, the wider the better.
I know Eric did say there is historical evidence of like fires wiping out the bluffs too.
Oh, yeah, recent memory, fairly recent, so it was a big fire. So.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's sort of, maybe if district fire is saying that, yeah, that would be a good place for a mineral soil fire break, I'm sure BC Hydro would be happy to do that because they don't have to do right-of-way maintenance on it. If it is cleared and grubbed down in mineral soil and maintained in that way, it would serve their purposes as well, but it might have to be coordinated with fire. They might have to say, yeah, that's a good idea, or yeah, we definitely want them to do that. Because it's
Even
more
if
like
a tree-free area is gonna do a lot, like it helps
Yeah.
that crown.
The shrubs that come back typically wouldn't be more than 3 meters tall. Once they do come back and they're not like their full expression, so there'd be a little bit of a sound barrier, but it's kind of down in a hollow and the crags are up here, so I don't know if it would necessarily, and there is that timber barrier between the backyards and the power line there.
And it's not gonna stop people from wondering what to do when they get to the top of Penny Lane. They
Yeah.
don't have an anchor.
There's no anchor up here. I've heard that from my house before. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Am I allowed to call the meeting adjourned, or someone else have to motion that?
To terminate.
Can I make a motion to terminate? And seconded by Brian? In favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, we can all go home. Okay, thanks everyone, and thanks again